Hey, how's it going, YouTube? This is Eric with the Eric AbroadCast with podcast number 18 for July 20th, 2017. Thank you guys for joining. If you happen to be new to my channel, please stop what you're doing. Don't listen to this podcast because it's probably not as interesting as the main content. Please go to my channel at Eric Abroad on YouTube. Or if you'd like to see the videos and all of my content a lot more organized and detailed and spelled out, also has information on what the hell Eric Abroad is, please check me out at ericabroad.tv. That is the official website. It kind of looks like shit on mobile, I admit, but if you're on a PC or Mac, it looks great. I will be fixing that later. Before we get into the podcast today, I want to give a shout out to the sponsors and the supporters that help make this channel possible. First, I want to give a shout out to italki.com. is the sponsor, yes, the one sponsor of our humble channel here. italki.com is a website basically where if you're learning a language, you can get on a Skype call with an official teacher or someone of the native language of the language you're trying to learn, and in our case, Japanese. I've talked about italki before because they've sponsored previous podcasts in previous months, but I actually tried it recently, so I'm super. Where's my hair? Hey, no, that's the wrong sound effect. Oh boy, I have these sound effects and I sometimes just slap them at random. So sorry if it doesn't make any sense. italki.com, yeah, great way to basically practice a language if you don't have access to a friend. I of course, while I do thank italki, I of course suggest if you have a friend or a pen pal or someone that you can just Skype to practice the language with. Speaking of which, I need to practice my English. By all means, please do that, as it's a great way, and that's kind of how I practiced a lot of Japanese when I was living in Japan studying abroad, and how I will be doing more of it after we move back there. But please, if you want to check it out, you can go to, I have the link below, but I believe I'm going to make sure I get this link right. I think it's promos. Maybe it's promo. Where is it? Oh boy, not organized. promos.italki.com/Eric Abroad. That's a mouthful. Just check out the link below. And if you sign up through my page, you'll get $10 in credit. So if you're actually thinking about signing up, you might as well just do it through the link. Thanks again to italki. I actually tried it recently, which was pretty rad. I did a 30-minute trial lesson. You can find trial lessons anywhere from like $5. I did one for about $10 with Yuki-san. And we basically just talked. I actually recorded the whole thing, and on my Patreon page, I will likely be posting it there. So if you want to check that out, I'll be posting it on there. Patreon supporters, I got to give a shout out to Patreon before we get into this podcast. So I have a total, as of today, 12 supporters of the Eric Abroad channel. Let's get that studio clap. Hey, my channel is really small and it's something I do as a hobby. I'm looking forward to, after we move to Japan, kicking it up a notch, going into overdrive and treating it more like a part-time job and creating a lot more fun content. I have a little bit of a background in film, particularly in editing, so I love to edit videos. And although I'll be doing kind of guerrilla style, stuff in Japan, kind of filming myself, I'm trying to be as like little vloggy as possible. I'm not a huge fan of the vlog stuff, although some of it's really great and really successful. I'm trying to just, I don't know, be myself, I guess, and kind of make my own content. So if you find the content that's on there interesting, I'm hoping that it will only get better in the following months after we get to Japan. So where was I going? Yes, Patreon. I lost where I was going with that. I apologize. So thank you, first of all, to all the supporters, but especially to what I call the super supporters, those that support in the higher tiers of the Eric Abroad channel, and to the highest tier, which I have doubly named the clinically insane tier, because really the insane amount that people are donating for just such a small channel, I can't thank you guys enough. And the only way I know how to thank you guys even more for that is to read your guys' names aloud, as basically you're kind of like producers of, the channel in a way. So big shout out to Kirsten, G, Paul, and Jacob. These have been the 4 clinically insane supporters for the last couple months now, and I gotta say, rock on. Thank you guys so much. Really, I appreciate it. And on top of that, occasionally we'll do a YouTube live Q&A for like an hour or two with everyone and kind of chat and shit, and that's all good and well. Recently I haven't been doing it, of course, because I'm just in America. What am I going to talk about? We go live and it's like, oh, how's Eric doing? I'm good. I'm sipping coffee and I'm just waiting for Japan. I recently posted on Twitter a GIF of how I'm feeling. It's a picture of Stewie Griffin in a straight jacket kind of going like this. That's how I feel right now. I'm just waiting. People keep asking me like, hey, what date are you leaving? We need to hang out. When are you leaving? I don't know when I'm leaving. I'd love to know. You tell me. When are we going? We're hoping, again, to hear in the next few weeks more about the work visa, which will get the ball rolling here, and hopefully in the next couple months we'll be there. So I'm just waiting. So hence there hasn't been any live Q&As, public ones, where I just kind of have everyone going. Once we get to Japan, that's going to be a lot more fun, right? We'll be, in my Japanese apartment, and I could be like, oh, guys, you won't believe what happened to me today on the streets. This happened, blah, 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 and we can chat about it. It's going to be a blast. I'm really stoked. But for now, I don't want to bore you guys and try to do that. So, however, for Patreon supporters only, this is an exclusive thing. Everything on my channel is free, but kind of this like deleted scenes, maybe my italki session, like I said, behind the scenes, like photos of like stuff going, behind the scenes, maybe blog posts and shit. All the extra stuff I'm putting on Patreon for people who want to support the channel directly. And I gotta apologize. This is unprofessional. I'm gonna throw on the Jeopardy theme. I'm sweating bullets over here. I am going to turn on a fan. This is embarrassing. This is as unprofessional as a podcast gets. I'm wearing some sweatpants because it was cold in here, and now it's hot as shit. So I'm gonna turn on a fan. There is gonna be a little background hum because of the fan, and I apologize. But you know what? It's hot. I'm gonna do that, turn on the Jeopardy theme, and I'll be right back. So hang tight. Oh, did I make it? Did I make it? Okay. Oh, that's much better. I apologize. Again, low production quality. That's kind of the point of the podcast. The videos that we post on the channel are the ones that I grill over. I do all-nighters to get those edited and make them, what I consider polished. The podcast is a way for me to kind of sit back, have a beer. I hope that's okay with you guys. It's actually my older brother's birthday today, so congrats to my older brother, Chris. I actually have another announcement. I'll announce it in just in a little bit, but I'm gonna take a sip of this here. Yes. No, I love doing this podcast again, like just because it's so relaxed, but that is kind of uncalled for to change in front of you guys and make you guys wait. So let's move on. What was I talking about? I'm kind of all over the place, so I'm losing my train of thought, and I hope that's okay. Patreon. Yeah, so once okay, so Patreon, wow, got really sidetracked. We are going to be having basically the plan was, as the channel gets growing and stuff and more people want to support the channel, I want to offer you guys a once a month Patreon only exclusive Q&A, not to exclude everyone else, of course, and occasionally I'm going to be having public ones anyway. I'll likely be doing a public one once a month and a Patreon one once a month, just to give the Patreon supporters like, hey, if you're gonna dish out some money to help pay for my coffee, I want to give back. I'm not trying to talk about that too much here to try to be like, give me money, but that's kind of my thinking, right? I think it'll be really fun. So this month, if anyone actually shows up, the last one I did last month was a train wreck, and I actually had to turn it public because I couldn't figure out how to make it private for Patreon people only. I thought I had it figured out, and this month I think we nailed it. I looked up some shit and I was like, okay, I think that's what I did wrong. So again, crossing fingers, knock on wood, this month should be functional. I'm going to be posting the link on the Patreon page, but the time and date for this month, it's going to be a small group. We have 12 patrons, and I doubt even half of them are going to show up, and that's rad. Even if one of you can hang out, I think it'd be fun. I'm going to be sitting here. It's going to be at noon this Saturday. What is that? July, I have it posted here. I believe it's July 22nd. Yeah, July 22nd, 2017 at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time here in America. For all you British out there, that'll be 8 p.m. British Standard Time. And unfortunately for Japanese Standard Time, however, I don't think any of my supporters, or at least a large majority, are not Japanese on Patreon. That will be at 4 a.m. Japanese Standard Time. So please punch that in. Noon PST, 8 p.m. BST, 4 a.m. JST. If you can make it, even if one person can hang out, I'll be stoked. If not, thank you for supporting the Patreon anyway, and I hope that in the future, as the channel hopefully gets going a little bit more and grows and we get more supporters, it'll be fun to hang out with you guys and kind of have like a small collective group. Maybe we can play some games and shit together. You guys know I'm a huge nerd for video games. I almost want to like talk about that more because I just like I buy games all the time. I could talk about games forever. If we ever do like a live meetup, in the future. Like if the channel gets bigger and I'm like, hey, I'm having a meetup in Tokyo and we do that, and you need something to talk with me about, you don't know how to break the ice with me, I love games. I'm not as huge of an anime guy. I don't know as much about that, but I love games. So if you want to talk to me about that, anyways, I don't really know why I mentioned that. But yes, the 22nd will be this month's Patreon. Again, it's a small group, but it's just while we're waiting for Japan, it's kind of inevitable. It's kind of be like that. So with all that out of the way, let's start the podcast. I warn you, today's podcast might be a little short, although every time I say that, I usually find stuff that I can talk about because I just love to hang out and chat with you guys, and you guys know that I like talking. I could talk your guys' ear off as long as I have something to talk about, except it'll be, again, once we're in Japan, I'll have so much more stuff to talk about related to Japan, so I don't want to talk your guys' ears off, you know, on just like, hey, I love Japan, blah, blah, blah. That's boring. I'm not going to waste you guys' time today as much as I can, but if you guys are here to hang out and you guys are maybe at work or driving or whatever you're doing, trying to kill some time, welcome to the podcast. If you're wondering why I have some white shit in my thumb, I apologize. Kind of gross, but I have a wart, and I'm trying to get rid of it before Japan, so that's some medicine. I know it looks gross, so I'm sorry. Let's see, I actually wrote some, because I'm so scatterbrained, I usually, before I start a podcast, I kind of write down some stuff that I have on my mind and stuff I kind of want to talk about. So let's see here. Let's see. It says to update on the visa briefly. Okay. So I really don't have an update, but we have some speculation. So we're kind of placing bets here. Maybe you guys can like place a bet on when the visa is going to come in. So here's basically how this works. I've mentioned it before, so I apologize if you have already heard this 100 times. I'm going to kind of explain it again. So basically, if you find a job in Japan, and you're like, you know, a company emails you and says you're hired. I'm going to thumbs up with this one because my other thumb's gross. You're hired. You're coming into Japan. Congratulations. Let's get this visa shit rolling. Sweet. So first rule, you need to have a bachelor's degree. And this might not apply to everyone, but as like a blanket, like general thing, and especially just in my case, you need a bachelor's degree. Most people, if you want to work in Japan, you have to have some form of a 4-year degree. In order to do that. So it is, you know, it's kind of strict, but it kind of, I think they just have to be picky on how many people they can let in. So first rule, get a degree. We got that. Sweet. Exactly. Actually, today's the 20th, right? I graduated on June 18th. And on June 20th, my boss submitted my paperwork to get the visa rolling. So this is how it works. Before I can even apply for the visa, I first have to get a piece of documentation directly from the Japanese government, or I guess the Japanese Immigration Bureau, whatever you'd like to call it, from Japan, an official document that is called the Certificate of Eligibility. What this does is allows you to be eligible to apply for a visa. So you can't just apply for a work visa. You have to first be approved. So upon graduating, we submitted the forms to get what I'll just call it the COE. The Certificate of Eligibility is the COE. That's what we're waiting for right now. But the good news is, and my hopeful speculation here, again, knocking on a lot of wood here, and let's, you know, like hope for the best. But I look up basically how long a COE generally takes to arrive, and it says that it takes roughly 5 weeks. So in theory, it's been exactly 1 month to the day today. So we're hoping that in maybe a week, maybe at the earliest, but probably in like 2 or 3 weeks, we're hoping to finally get that COE. Once we have the COE, I take that. My voice cracked. Ooh. Where's that? Woohoo. I take the COE. I take my passport and a visa application. There may be some additional documentation. I actually kind of forget. But basically, you take all the stuff that you need and you go to the Japanese immigration office in, you know, whatever city you live in. So I live in Portland, Oregon. I'll be going there. I submit it. And what's great is the COE, I think, is actually the hardest part. I mean, there's hard things with moving to a country, of course, but as far as like the documentation and getting authorized to come to Japan, I believe the COE is the most difficult part, which is great. So like after this long wait is done and they're like, okay, you have everything, we'll actually have more of a judge, like when are you going to Japan? I'll actually have that kind of judged out. So I got to talk about that though, because there's stuff after the visa. So I get my COE, I go to the bureau, I turn in my visa application. Now, the visa apparently only takes, it doesn't even take 1 week. It can take literally like at a minimum like 3 business days to get. So let's say I got it on a, let's say I got it on a Monday. I will hopefully have the visa before Friday, which is awesome. So I'd have my work visa, boom. I'd email my boss Well, I'll email my boss when I get my COE to let him know like the visa's coming soon. But once I have my visa, I'll say, hey, boss, I'm ready. Like, let's go. So in my case, you know, this will be different if you're in JET where they set things up. The JET program is basically a government funded program from Japan that you can do that's a lot more, how do I say, they have like a system, kind of like a thing that like once, like if you're approved, they kind of take care of everything for you. Mine is, I'm doing a similar job and kind of a similar thing, but it's not technically through JET. It's just directly through someone, through a friend of a friend that I met. Similar thing, but because of that, I do have to deal with some, you know, some things on my own, namely finding an apartment. So because I'm, you know, kind of just sitting here waiting for my visa, I'm trying to get everything lined up so that once the visa comes in, we can just, we can go to Japan. So I almost want to show you guys. I'm not going to, because, you know, I don't want to show pictures of an apartment that I'm not going to move to if, you know, if it doesn't work out. But I basically have like 3, 4, 5 apartments that I've saved, that I've found that are, you know, within close proximity to my work, but also close enough to some places like Namba, which is a really fun like place with a lot of bars, restaurants, kind of tourist spot. But there's Shinsekai, which is near there as well. There's so many spots, and of course by train I can kind of go wherever I want. But as far as like, if I wanted, for example, I want to move to wow, my voice is killing me. If I want to be able to ride a bike, because riding bikes in Japan is very common and very convenient, as I will not be driving. I will be riding primarily trains. Well, actually, no, I take that back. I might be driving rental cars. I'm gonna be trying to see if I can get my international driver's license. I actually should probably look into that this next week. I have work off. Yeah, anyways, I'll add that to my list. I'm gonna international, sorry, I'm making a note here, international license, because I don't want to forget that underscore. Okay. Yeah, so like if I ever do like a big trip that's maybe a couple hours away and maybe like inaccessible by train, or I just want to drive, I like to drive sometimes, or I want to go with a friend, it'd be fun to do like a road trip kind of thing, I will hopefully be able to rent a car, and that'll be a fun experience. I'd almost want to make a video of that in itself, because in Japan the driving is, to Americans, Americans, we drive, you know, sitting in the left, and we drive on the right side of the road. So I'll be on the right driving the left side of the road, which, you know, for all you people in Europe, that's like totally normal. For me, that's crazy. I've never done it. I've ridden in cars with it, and it still blows my mind. So that could be fun. Anyways, I want to move somewhere where I'll be like within close enough proximity that I could ride my bike basically to do anything I want. I'll be close to a shopping mall. If I get one of these apartments, you know, for this example, I'll be close to a shopping mall, close to a big train station, very close to a big train station. Of course, there's convenience stores everywhere. There's grocery stores everywhere, so I can do all my grocery shopping by bike, hopefully, you know, just kind of daily. That's another cool thing, is if I'm commuting daily, it'll be more kind of like, I call this like the European style, because I kind of blanket all of Europe, I apologize. But there's some countries in Europe where you kind of buy your food daily, and that's very contrastive to us Americans, who we go to Costco and we stock up and we throw meat in our meat lockers, and, you know, we store up as if like winter's coming. And no reference to Game of Thrones there, but that's how we do it here. So it'll be kind of fun to be able to like, oh, tonight I'm gonna have this for dinner, and I can go and buy it and then just go home like on my commute. That'll be nice. And then I'll also be close to Shinsekai, which is another kind of touristy spot. Namba, which is a touristy spot. Of course, I'm not like trying to be in touristy spots, but they're touristy spots for a reason. And if you know where to go within those spots that aren't so touristy, you can find some really cool bars, really cool clubs. And I love those spots. It's a lot of fun to go to with friends. So I'm so stoked, and I would share these photos with you guys, but I'm going to wait. You know, once I find the apartment, I'll share something. And of course, when I get to Japan, every YouTuber has to make this is my Japanese apartment. But I actually have some ideas for a video that I think will be really funny. I'll just give a hint. It's a huge hint, but MTV Cribs is the theme I will be going towards. Maybe JTV Cribs. I don't know, whatever we want to call it. I think it's gonna be hilarious. I have some ideas. It's cool because like, I have a lot of ideas for what I want to shoot in Japan. I have like this list, like, okay, I got to do this video. I got to go to this spot. I'm going to meet with this friend and we're going to do this. And then of course there's other YouTubers that, you know, naturally over time I will meet. I've already been in contact with a few YouTubers, which is awesome, that already live in Japan. So if there's anyone like, hey, do you guys want to meet up with a new YouTuber like me? I'm just like, I'm the new guy. I got to kind of meet some people. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Maybe go to some meetups and shit. So I have all these ideas of videos I'd like to make, but what's going to be rad is I'm going to get there And of course, like, things are going to pop up that I didn't expect. Like, oh, I could totally make a video on that. Or like, oh, I totally want to talk about this. So I'm just excited to just be, you know, thrown into situations where it becomes something that I can discuss, something that we can look into, and something that we can maybe make a video about and share. I think that'll be really fun. So obviously I'm really excited because these apartments I've picked out, I guess I think, let me take another sip of this as my throat's kind of killing me here. Sorry. If anyone's out there drinking, or if you have a water, take a sip with me here. I know it's probably rude, but hey, it's a podcast. I think one of my biggest, okay, so a lot of Japanese apartments are basically like studios. If you guys don't know what a studio is, maybe in different countries they call it different things. It's basically like a one-room apartment where it's all kind of in one room. Like the kitchen is next to your bed and next to your coffee table, and your bathroom's right there, kind of thing. So like a lot of these apartments I find, they're usually like, they have it in meters. I don't even know what it'd be in feet, to be honest. I'm so stupid. We don't use the metric system here, so I have to get used to it, like kilometers and meters and shit. But it's usually like let's say like a cheap apartment for like a single person would be probably like 20 square meters. Basically you'd have the genkan, which is the entrance with like your shoes and stuff, because in Japan you take off your shoes before you go in. Traditionally that's how you do it, at least I will be doing it that way, because it keeps the apartment clean. I think us Americans have a lot to learn from Japan. Anyways, you get into the genkan, you walk in, you'll probably be in the kitchen. There's like a stove, your fridge. My camera's out of focus, I apologize. Maybe if you turn to the left, you'll have usually the toilet and the bath are in separate rooms, which in America we don't do that. We usually have them in the same room. I think it, you know, it makes sense. It's like, you know, I'll do your dirty business in one room, have your clean stuff in another. I think it works. So they call it betsubasu, which is like just separate bathroom. Oh, and there's the beep. I apologize. I'm temporarily living in my parents' garage waiting for Japan to start, and that beeping never stops. It goes every half hour. It keeps me up all night. It sucks. It's the internet router, so I apologize. That's gonna happen. Kind of the worst thing to have on a podcast is a constant beeping. But just bear with me, yeah. And anyway, so like most Japanese apartments, they'll have, you know, you'll have the bath, the bathroom, and then in one of those rooms probably the laundry thing. They have really small laundry units, like a washing machine, and usually not a dryer, unless you lived in like a home with a family and you need to do that all the time. Even when I lived in with a host family, they had a dryer, but they didn't always use it. Like if they could, they'd always air dry. Japanese love to air dry their clothes, which I think is awesome. It's longer, it's better for the clothes. You save money, you don't have to buy the unit, it saves energy, it's great. And most days of the year you can just hang your clothes outside and it's no problem. They all have a balcony, which again, in America the difference is a balcony is usually a spot for smoking and drinking beers and playing poker and, you know, hanging out and having a barbecue or something. In Japan, it's pretty much strictly for laundry. So you'll find it's usually just a bar where you can hang stuff, and some they have outside slippers. You go in, take off your shoes, put on your inside slippers. I probably won't use slippers. I'll probably just have socks. Some people use slippers. And then I'm like, oh, I got to do laundry now. You go out to the balcony, take those slippers off, put on your outside slippers because those are dirty, do all your laundry, take those off, put on the clean ones and go back in. But I love that kind of style. I got really used to it, and I just find it, it's going to be a fun experience. But a lot of apartments are like that, where it's kind of one room, and that's fine if you're doing like a single thing, and it's usually cheap. But for myself, as someone who loves to do like things like YouTube, I love to play video games, I love to relax and watch TV sometimes on the weekend and stuff. I love to have a separate room to act as maybe a bedroom or an office. So I've been looking specifically for apartments. Basically my top three, I'll just say this. They all have lofts. How do you say that word? Loft. They have lofts in them. Lofts in them. L-O-F-T-S. A loft, if you know, it's like basically just a second floor. Basically what it is like, it's very similar to what I just described. You walk in and there's the kitchen. You walk in, hey, it's the living room. You have like maybe a TV and a coffee table and a couch. But then there's a ladder. Like some places I looked at have stairs. And the number one I'm looking at, oh man, I think it's pretty nice for how cheap it is, and how close and convenient it'll be for me if I get it. They have this nice like entry stairway. It's super like stylish looking. Ooh, I hope I can get it. But the couple other ones, they have literally a ladder. So for someone like myself that's like small and, you know, in somewhat of shape, it works. For some people it would be very inconvenient, but luckily for me, I would love it, as I'm able to kind of separate my house out. So although the square footage of the house isn't really any different, you get two rooms. So this is my ideal apartment. yeah, like I just kind of said, walk in, kitchen, all that shit. But I will have, oh, I think my sound effects just died. No, want. We have no more sound effects. I apologize. Oh, that's a bummer. Anyways, yeah, so I basically walk in, have my kitchen, my bathroom, all that stuff, and it's all, you know, whatever. But in the dining room, I would have ideally a couch, a small table for eating, maybe a little coffee table where I can kind of just like set stuff, have coffee. Maybe that, I don't know. Maybe I'll just eat my food there, to be honest. I don't know. And then a small TV. I can't wait to get a TV and get access to either. I'm not a huge cable guy here, but I wouldn't mind buying it in Japan because I'd have access to a lot of shows that I don't normally have access to here. Like, you know, basically just Japanese TV. I'm really excited to just, you know, wake up in the morning and just have Japanese going all the time. Always thinking about it, always looking at it. Japanese TV loves to use subtitles, which is perfect. They use the kanji, they make it all fun and colorful, and so you can literally, like a child, you can kind of read while you're listening to these things, and it's like a comedy show or a travel show, so it's usually something informative. I think Japanese TV is naturally the best, like, TV programming for learning a language. While I was there, if my host family was, like, out of the house or something, that's all I did. I'd turn on TV and just watch it, and you can take notes, pause, rewind. That's where the DVR and the cable comes in. But, like, even if I just had local TV, it'd be really fun just to have it, like, I could check the weather and just kind of get used to, like, hearing how the weather works a little bit more. And, you know, I'm still getting used to that. And really excited for that. So ideally that would be like the coffee room. So of course, like if I had a friend over or had like a family come visit or something, it'd be nice to have a little place where they can kind of just sit down and relax, and we can kind of like hang out, maybe play some games and stuff, board games, card games, whatever. And then, or video games. But the video games I want to put in the loft. I want to have a loft that will have, ideally, if it's large enough, I'd have my bed, maybe a second TV. I don't really know, but I was thinking about having like a second station where I keep like my video games and stuff. Like I said, I love video games. I love to kind of collect them, and in Japan, it's the home, you know, it's kind of the land of a lot of video games. So it'll be really fun to kind of keep collecting and doing stuff like that. And so I'd ideally have like, if it's big enough, I'd have a bed with a TV so I can watch TV, because I always watch TV, you know, going to sleep. And, you know, have all my games set up, but also have a spot for a sweet computer desk. I want to be able to have like a really, when I have the money, I'm going to upgrade my computer. Right now I'm working on this like travel laptop, which works. Of course, all of Eric Abroad has been edited on this beast. So let's give oh, my sound effects are gone. Da-da. I want to just give a shout out to this fucking laptop. It's been running for, I think, 4 years. It's kind of a gamer laptop in that it like has a good, I don't want to nerd out, but has a good graphics card in it and processor as far as laptops go. But I can't wait to get a big computer again that's really beastly, because I'm a nerd and I love the fast stuff. And I work with editing, so it's actually justified. It's, you know, it's for work, yeah? So that's my ideal apartment. I'd have the little living room, but also my bed, gaming, and little, kind of like an office, yeah? So I have a few different spots picked out. So ideally, and again, like when I was asking my boss, people were asking like, so what's the process with your apartment and shit? I told my boss, like, my boss asked me like, how would you like to proceed with the apartment? Like, do you want us to find you one? Do you want us to give you one? Do you want to find one? And I asked, if it's cool, I'd love to try to find my own. And after the visa comes in, I could just show it to you guys and maybe we could go from there. So as far as the details, it's kind of like, that's another thing where I'm kind of anxious here, just kind of waiting, because I really don't know the details. Like, am I going to show them an apartment and then they're going to put in the deposit for me and then I get there, or am I going to wait to get there and then pay? Like, I really don't know. But the boss did guarantee me that he will be what's called my guarantor. So he guaranteed the guarantor, which basically just means he's the, I mean, in America we do it too. I don't know if that's what we call it, but you basically like put down like your parents' name or a friend's name, someone who, like, if I just left and stopped paying rent, they can come to someone else and be like, hey, we need money, and they can charge them. So my boss being really nice and really kind, I don't think most bosses are required to do that. So he's like, I'll be your guarantor. So, you know, whatever, please, like, find it. I'm assuming they want me to find an apartment that's a 1-year lease, because my work what's the word? My contract. Wow. Jesus, I'm really kind of losing it here. Again, I didn't really mention it, but you know, while I'm waiting for Japan, I have some free time here, and of course I'm busy, like, you know, getting ready and studying and doing video editing, but I'm not really like technically working outside of, you know, YouTube stuff. And my dad, he owns a painting company. So he basically said, like, hey, Eric, if you want to make any money for Japan, and I really needed to. Now I have the money, which is great. Like, I've worked my ass off. That's what I've been up to lately. People ask, like, what have you been up to? that's it. I've just been working. It sucks. But he paints houses, so it's like I hate the work. It's hard work, you know, super blue collar, sweaty, and it dirty, and it's you got to deal with bees, and you're like 40 feet up on a ladder. I post it on my Instagram sometimes in my Snapchat just because like I'm up there and I'm going crazy. But you know, it's work. So like for saving up for Japan, I was super happy. He's like, Eric, do you want to work a little bit? And I was like, hell yeah. Which I'm gonna be taking a break from that this week. Whether or not I'm gonna be continuing later, I don't really know. But as far as like financially getting ready for like my apartment, like I said, I have to furnish it. I gotta buy a bed. I gotta buy a laundry machine. I gotta buy all that shit. Because I'm planning on living there for a few years, so I don't mind investing in some pretty nice stuff. Assuming I don't have to like turn around and sell it, you know, anytime soon. I'll hopefully be able to just move to a different apartment. Anyways, that's why I'm tired. I was there all day today. We were painting this house in the hot sun, so I'm just a little exhausted. But yes, the contract for my work is it's technically an annual contract, so we'll go year to year. And assuming like, you know, they don't want to lay me off, you know, who knows what'll happen. But optimistically, I'm thinking that it won't happen. And my friend who works there, he's been there now for I think over 2 years, and there's bonuses and shit. And he's just like, man, yeah, he's like I'm annual as well, but like there's no sign of them firing me. He just recently got promoted, so I'm like, okay, rad. So, but with that being said, I don't think I'm allowed to. I'm gonna ask, but I don't think I'm allowed to apply for an apartment that's a 2-year lease because I have a 1-year work visa and I have a 1-year contract with my work. So it doesn't really make sense. I mean, I guess I could do it and then like, oh, I lost my job. I don't know. I probably can't. And I think for safety's sake, it'd be better to just do the 1 year. So every year I could decide like, should I stay here? Is the rent going up? Maybe they'll lower it for me. Maybe I should find a new place, you know, whatever. So the 3 places specifically that I have found that I think are the money, I've looked at, trust me, I've spent hours looking at apartments. I've kind of gone nuts looking at them all in that whole area. There's so many in Japan to choose from just because it's so condensed and it's so small. You can literally pick like, oh, I want to live closer to this convenience store. I'd like to live next to this train station. You can totally do that. I think it's rad. And they're all so similar that it's almost the same apartment. But the 3 that I picked I think are fairly unique. And I'm hoping that I can send them to my boss and he could just be like, dude, just pick one. Because one of them, I'll just tell you, it's probably like my number 2 pick, but the only reason I would make it a number 1 is there's no like initial deposit, and there's no, they call it reikin, which how do you explain this? I'm still learning this, but apparently in Japan, on top of a deposit, it's kind of become a custom, like cultural custom there, to pay the owner of the like the I don't know, the apartment or the complex or the building, to pay them kind of like a thank you fee. So like, I guess in theory, like, okay, I'm gonna be living here for 2 years, but I have to pay the guy $1,000 as a thank you thing. It's called reikin. Reigi means like, what do you call it? What would be the word? It's kind of like you have like not respect. What's the word? Again, I'm fried today. I apologize, but it basically means like being polite or having respect or having something towards someone. But that's what like the rei is the kanji for that, right? And kin means money. So it's basically like sometimes you have the deposit and then you also have the reikin, which means like you just have to pay both. And so some of the ones I'm looking at have, you know, one, some have the others, some have both. But the one that's the cheapest is probably like my number 2 pick, except for the fact that it's the cheapest. It's how much was it? Oh man, with utilities and the apartment, it's really cheap. It's 5.5 man, which is what would that be? 55,000 yen, which is essentially, I guess in American terms, it's about $500 a month. If 100 yen equaled $1 in a perfect world, which the dollar's usually always stronger, it would be like 550 a month, and that's it. No deposit, none of that shit, just 550 a month. And I'm like, what? I'm looking at this apartment. It's less than a year old, totally nice. Assuming there's no like scummy stuff or something I'm missing. Again, having my boss as the guarantor will be a huge relief for me because, you know, I'm moving to Japan and I can speak a little Japanese, but I've only lived there for a year. I learned a lot in that year and I was really proud of myself for how much I did and how much lately I haven't been studying so much because I've been working. And that's why I'm excited for next week to take next week off. I also want to give a little, well, I'll get to that in a sec, but some advice on my Japanese studies I've been doing lately. I think it's kind of fun. Assuming there's no scummy stuff from like the staff, like, haha, you didn't have to pay a deposit, but now we're gonna throw this at you, you know, who knows? A Japanese friend of mine actually kind of warned me about that. He's like, he's like, just please be careful because some places can be scummy. But if I was by myself, I'd be a little bit more concerned about it as like an American who doesn't really speak the language. Like, what if I sign a contract and I didn't, read the fine print? Well, or two, I can't really read the fine print because it's a lot of difficult kanji and a lot of words I don't know yet. Like, I'm not embarrassed to say it. I've only studied for a few years. I don't know this shit. So having my boss will be a big relief for me, and I'm really excited about that. So I'm really hoping I can just send him these spots, and he just gives me the thumbs up on all three and just says, pick one, dude, and then we can figure it out from there because I'm so excited. But so that's the update on that. Again, hopefully in the next couple weeks, and of course the second I find out, I'm gonna load up a podcast and let you guys know immediately because I'll be way too excited to not share it. And hopefully from there, we'll get the visa going and I could be like, all right, boss, let's get a plane ticket and where am I moving? And then we can figure out like a date and shit and get bank accounts and it's going to be a lot and it's going to be busy. The first few weeks are going to suck, but you guys can tell I'm super excited, super stoked, super, thankful obviously for you guys, but also just thankful for everyone who's helped me get to this point. I'm not going to like name a bunch of names right now, but just a lot of people have helped me. I've done a lot of self-help, of course, but a lot of people have helped me get to this position, and even finding the job itself was through a good friend of mine. So, I feel thankful right now, and I'm fucking stoked. So, I'm ready to move, I guess is my point. I'm ready to move, and I'm tired of sitting here. But working has been great, just with my dad, and it's like not my ideal work, but I've also gotten some... I told you guys I've worked in film in the past, and I've worked at different companies. I was supposed to be painting tomorrow and Friday. For you guys, it'll be today. I'm recording this Wednesday night, uploading it Thursday morning on the 20th. But I'm working the next couple of days doing some video stuff for a little Nike thing. Not like a big project or anything, but it pays better than painting, and it's also in an air-conditioned office, and it's editing, and I like to edit, so I'm pretty excited about that. But after this week, I think I'll financially be pretty prepared to, like, if I got a phone call saying, Eric, you're flying to Japan tomorrow, I could afford it. I could pay any deposits, any day-can, any furnishing I have to do. There's the beep. And any of that jazz, I think I'll be able to do it. I'm just checking to see how we are on time. We've been going for about 40 minutes or so. It's not too bad. So that's super exciting. And I guess this will be a full podcast. Yeah, I was worried, like, again, I said at the beginning, like, this is going to be a short one, guys. You guys might want to sit. Because, again, I feel bad. It's like, I'm not going to make, that's kind of why the live Q&A and the podcast lately have been a little, scarce. Because, I don't have much to talk about. I'm like, still waiting. But the second we hear about shit, it's going to start rolling. And I'm super excited for that. Moving on. Let's see. What else we got here? Usually on the podcast, I look at a lot of questions because, occasionally I'll get a question on Instagram or question on Snapchat, question, wherever. And I guess for the record, I wanted to ask you guys' opinion and maybe we could kind of try this out. To anyone listening, if you guys like have a specific question or a detailed thing, I'm thinking about requesting people to ask questions, read them to an email. Rather than just like some people, which I understand. You hit me up on Snapchat and you're like, hey, Eric, how did you learn Japanese? And it's like, I try to respond to everyone, and especially my channel's so small, it's not that hard for me to like read all your messages and respond. But I'll admit, I'll get a lot of repeat questions, which is understandable, but typing it on my phone is just kind of a nightmare and it takes so long. So I'm thinking about this, and I don't know if it's just going to create a bunch of spam, but I think it'll be good. I do have an email address for this channel. It's Eric AbroadJapan@gmail.com. If you need to find that, you can check me out at ericabroad.tv, or if you even go on my YouTube thing and go to like email, you can find it. ericabroadjapan@gmail.com. I was thinking about this, and I don't really know. It might be a good idea though to just like, if someone asked me on Twitter like, hey, how did you do this, I could be like, please send email to emartjapan or ericabroadjapan@gmail.com. Just so that, and in the subject line, put something like question or please answer this podcast, whatever, whatever in the subject line, just so I know it's a question. Right now, I don't get too many emails on that, so I think it'd be like fine. But it would suck like if in the future I started just getting a shit ton, who knows. But right, compared to getting a bunch on like Snapchat or like Twitter, or, again, I'm happy to respond on those, but I think if you sent it in an email, it'd be a lot easier for me to kind of compile them and maybe answer them one on the podcast. I'd probably answer it directly in person, but then also do it on the podcast in case you have the same question and I can answer it for you right now. So I guess anyone listening right now, if you have a question or something specific, or you asked me something and I accidentally ignored you, again, I try to get them all, but if I missed it, hit me up on the email. Let's try that for a little bit. Maybe we can trial that later. And if I start to like it, I'm going to start promoting it way more. Like later in the future, like, hey, if you have questions, send an email to, Eric Abroad Japan. So that was just kind of a thought I had. But a couple questions I got lately. What was it? I don't even have it pulled up. I just know it was on the top of my head. One person asked, and I get asked this a lot, pretty generic question. Eric, did you study before you went to Japan? Japanese is what he or she was referring to. And what book did you use? And they used the word book. I don't have the name of the user. I don't have to read it out. But if you're listening, thanks for the question. But people, they're like, what book did you use? And my answer is I didn't use a book. I've used a lot of books. And I'll first answer your first question. I went to school I did a little self-study, which wasn't very productive. And then I went to school for 1 year and then went abroad. But that being said, even with the 1 year, I was very confident. I was like, yeah, I understand a little Japanese grammar. I know some words. I know a couple nouns, like in a difference between a verb. Like this is in an adjective here. This is great. You got the ru adjective, or yeah, you got like the e adjectives, the u adjectives, the u verbs, the ru verbs. You got nouns. You got noun verbs. Like you have all this shit. And I felt so confident. I'm like, man, I can nail Japanese. I showed up to Japan and I couldn't speak for shit. But having that foundation of just understanding a little bit obviously helped tremendously, because then when I heard, if I was to hear something, I could be like, okay, and I could kind of listen like, oh, and then, you start to piece it out, right? So as far as the books, I can't really, I don't know, I could name some stuff right now, but I am going to say that in the future, I do plan on making like a quick little video, like the essential books for studying Japanese, in parentheses, for me. The books I've used, because I've used different, I use specific books for grammar. I use specific books for onomatopoeia words. For those who don't know, in Japanese, onomatopoeia words is a huge part of it. Like for example, a word like, first one comes to mind, sparkly. Like something's like sparkly clean, or you're looking at the ocean and it's like sparkly. You'd say something like kira kira, which it means sparkly. It's not an actual like word. It's like an onomatopoeia, kind of saying like, oh, that I don't know what's a good. I'm so burnt out right now. I don't really have a good example, but like a word that's not really a word. It's like a sound or something. Like what's one like I'm trying to think of one. This is kind of embarrassing. Like one in English, because we don't have as many in English. But something like boom, or bang, or yeah, like bang is one, I guess. It's an onomatopoeia, right? Like just a sound word of like a gun going bang. It's not a real word. I mean, there is a word to bang something, but that could be read bad, but you know what I mean? It's like to hit something, but like, I think you guys understand where I'm going with this. But in Japanese, onomatopoeia words are huge, and there's a shit ton. So I have a specific book that helps lay those out. I have a specific book for remembering and writing kanji. I have 2 books for that. I had one book for learning like grammar, which is called Genki. A lot of people, if you go on Amazon right now and type in Genki, it's probably one of the most recommended books. Actually, one of my professors in Japan was one of the like co-authors of it, which is pretty rad. It's like your bare bones Japanese, and I don't say that like to be like, oh, it's your bare like it's good. You should look if you're learning Japanese. I think Genki's great. It comes with like a worksheet thing, so if you are trying to self-study, it's difficult, but you can do it. But having the book is just great, because it's like say you like set a regiment, like okay, in school we use like 1 week for a lesson, but like if you're self-studying and you're busy with shit, maybe like 2 weeks a lesson is your goal. So you go through and it's like, all right, there's 5 grammar points for this next 2 weeks, and you go through and you can slowly like read it, think of examples, look at examples, study it, practice it, move on to the next week, and then maybe go back and revisit, whatever you have to do. But I used Genki. I think there's like 2 or 3, I don't really know, but it's like bare bones Japanese. I think it's really great. And then I've used other textbooks that were like delivered directly from the school that aren't actually for sale. They're just kind of specifically made. So I will be making a video in the future that's like how to, the essential books for Japanese that work for me. So look forward to that in the future, but that's kind of my long, short answer. Second question I've been getting a lot lately regarding summer in Japan. So a lot of people, you may already know this, may or may not. I mentioned it a lot. Summers in Japan are really hot. And also on top of that, they're very humid. And for someone like me, I live in Portland, Oregon, in America. In the summer, it gets hot. it's generally a rainy state. Like it's rainy and cloudy, like almost like 60-70% of the year. But in the summer, it gets really nice and sunny and hot, but it's like a dry heat. So it'll be like 85 degrees, but dry. So it's like comfortable. You're like, oh, you can put on a little hat and you're good. Wear a t-shirt and shorts. But when it gets muggy, you know, maybe you guys on the East Coast, I went to Washington, D.C. once as a kid, and that was muggy. Or maybe in like Florida. Something somewhere more tropical or something like that. You know, you guys have to deal with more muggy. In Japan, it is balls hot. Even people I talk to that live in Japan, I mean, there's good things, good aspects about the summer, but they hate the fucking heat. It's awful. So a lot of people ask me like, hey, I'm going to Japan in 2 weeks, or I'm going in July. What clothes should I bring? And, you know, like, what's the weather like? My first answer is, why are you going in July? Really, I'm like, there was actually someone recently, and I forget the name, I apologize, but if you're listening, you know, I thought it was funny. They basically said like, hey dude, I'm gonna be going to Japan at like the end of July. Is this a good idea? And I replied in all caps saying, please don't. If you can decide, please go in the fall or the spring, because trust me, it's the winter you can go too, but it's really cold. I think the fall and spring of Japan is so perfect. They get all 4 seasons, and if you can decide, there's no reason to choose the summer over the fall. The fall is beautiful. You get the autumn leaves. It's just like good weather. You're finally starting to put on a little winter clothing, maybe like a jacket, but it's like just nice. And then in the spring, of course, you get the cherry blossoms and the good weather and people drinking and having fun. Go in those seasons if you can help it. But if you have to go in the summer, of course, have a good time. But just be aware it's going to be really muggy and really hot. People literally bring towels with them. It's not uncommon to bring a little hand towel and just wipe yourself down because it's going to be hot. So that's my answer to that. So, of course, in the future, as we get this podcast going more weekly and we get more questions, send them through to ericabroadjapan@gmail.com, and I'll be sure to answer them for you. Sound effect. Yes, let's see. Do I have anything? Oh, yeah. So, I have like one last thing I kind of want to talk about. Upcoming videos. People are like, you know, do you have any videos coming up? Of course, like people are supporting me on Patreon and stuff, and it's like, oh, I'm obligated to make videos. That's true. It's not like I haven't been making videos, but you know, I'm not in Japan right now, and I will be soon. But there's the only footage I can really work with are videos I can make. I did make the takoyaki. I loved making the takoyaki video. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. A friend of mine, if you haven't seen it on my channel, takoyaki is a Japanese dish that has octopus in it. It's like a street food. It's basically a ball-shaped little dough pancake thing. You put a piece of octopus inside, and people sometimes put cheese on it. But generally, like the general one, it's just kind of this dough with octopus. And if you ever had octopus and it's creeping you out, I beg you to try it unless you're allergic, because it actually doesn't have a lot of flavor. It's just the texture that's good. You bite into this thing and it's chewy because it's a chewy thing. So it's cool to have something to kind of chew on. And basically they drizzle it in Japanese mayonnaise, which is different than American mayonnaise. Just try it. It's called okonomi sauce or takoyaki sauce, which is, it's like this brown kind of barbecue sauce. And then usually some bonito fish flakes and some aonori, which is seaweed, like dry like seaweed flakes. And man, it's one of my favorite foods of all time. And my buddy who is from Osaka, he moved here to Portland, been living here for like 4 years, speaks fluent English. He set up his own business. He met with lawyers and opened up a food cart in downtown Portland, which is famous for food carts. And he made it's a takoyaki only. Well, they have some dessert stuff, but it's mainly takoyaki. Check out the video if you haven't. It shows everything about it. It's just called Eating Octopus Balls in Portland, in all caps. And I love making that video. And that was an example of a video that I could make now in America that's related to Japan, but I'm not in Japan. But that was a pretty rare moment. My friend was like, dude, oh man, I suck. My voice is killing me. My friend was just like, dude, I opened this restaurant. Do you want to help me make a video? And I was like, yeah. Could I also make an Eric Abroad video? And he's like, sure. So we shot like, a normal like commercial style, but also the Eric Abroad one. In the commercial style one, I handed it off to a friend, and I don't think he's edited it at all. I need to call him. I'm gonna make another note here. Apologize. Sound effect for Jeopardy. Remind takoyaki. I'll remember hopefully what that means. Yeah, but I really enjoyed making that video. But like I said, until we're in Japan, I'm kind of just looking at footage that we shot a year ago. So I will tell you, just because you guys listen to the podcast, I'll just tell you right now what I'm working on. The video I posted before that was a little recap of a trip we did to a place called Nikko outside of Tokyo. A little winter getaway to a traditional hotel. I took a night bus to get to Tokyo, so I kind of made this video out of that. And I originally never posted it just because, although we shot a lot, when I first went through the footage, I kind of, sometimes you're just not feeling it. I was like, I don't know if I want to make a video about this. So I always put it on the side. Now I posted it. I think think it was actually, you know, pretty entertaining. It's like not my favorite video, but I thought it was pretty good. And you know, it's a good memory for me. So I thought it was worth sharing. Maybe in the future I wouldn't share it. I don't know, whatever. Part 2, I'm working on that. It's kind of a bummer because I don't think part 2 is quite as interesting, but it is still pretty cool. We go check out some like temples and stuff, and I want to try to make it interesting for you guys. And you know, I don't want to like be like, oh, this video's gonna suck. It's not how I feel. I wouldn't post it if I did think that, but it's definitely, you know, not like my favorite video out there. But that's coming. I think before that, I'm gonna be posting a video. I've mentioned you guys before, I have 18 videos that I'm going to edit, all these different things. Well, recently, with some free time, I started going in and seeing, okay, let's make some videos. Let's go through and see, like, what we can actually make here. And I'll just tell you guys, since I shot it, you know, a couple years ago, there's a few things that come in. One, there's reasons why I always push them to the side because I wasn't initially, like, stoked on making a video for them. And going back and looking, I'm kind of realizing, like, man, yeah, all these videos, I don't know if I could really make a video for each of them. I don't think they'd be good enough. I don't think they'd be high quality enough, interesting enough, or just that unique enough. 2, looking at yourself a couple years ago is, of course, weird because it's like I'm posting a video, but it's not me now. Like, even though it's just a couple years, like, you know, people change, and just seeing yourself, you kind of cringe, like, oh, man. But if I made it just a week ago, it's like, yep, that's me, and I could post it. For those reasons, I've decided this, and I hope you guys will like it, and if not, well, whatever, because I'm gonna be doing this anyway. But I think it's for the best, and I think it's good. This isn't like a cop-out. I was trying to think, like, is there anything I could do with this footage? You could probably already guess it, but I'm basically gonna be making a 5-minute recap of, like, you know, the archived highlight footage that never made it to release, that I never uploaded for Eric AbroadCast. Because, so I think this is going to be good, and it'll actually be better than trying to make a video out of each of one and, like, finding and be like, man, there's not that much interest, nothing really interesting here. Let's try to make it interesting, rather than trying to do that and pulling my hair out. I'm taking and going, I went through already, and I think it'll be pretty, you know, at least interesting enough for you guys to kind of check out and get a little, just look at some things. It's like top highlights of places I went to in Japan, but it's just the highlights. So like each like video, it'll be like 10 seconds from this you know, trip, 10 seconds from this trip, but it's gonna be like quick, but not like so fast that you're like, damn, dude, like, come on. It'll be like, you know, and I'm just trying to say that it's a little montage. It'll be pretty high, like, energy, and I hope that you guys find it entertaining, because I was editing it the other day and I'm like, man, I kind of like this. There's the beep, I apologize. But I think it's gonna turn out, you know, good for what it is. It's just a little montage highlight thing. It's nothing like that special, but rather, like I said, rather than trying to, like, you know, polish a turd, I'm trying to take all these little highlights from each one and make one, like, pretty, you know, decent video. So I think I'm excited to post it, and it's stuff that I've wanted to share, but it's been hard because, again, like, I'd look at it and be like, man, I don't know if I can share that. But it was, like, really, you know, special, maybe a special moment for me, or a special trip, or something that it was, like, my first time seeing it. So I hope you guys enjoy it, and that's coming out. So those are, like, some upcoming videos, and I hope to have that one done. I'll probably have that out next week, I think. Yeah. I told my dad, like, hey, I'm at a pretty good spot financially. I think I'm going to take a break from work. I may come in for a day or two here and there to get, you know, just some extra $100 or so. But for now, I'm kind of calling it quits on working. I'm actually, like I said, I'm in a good financial spot. The goal was to get to that spot so that I can kind of, one, work on YouTube shit, but two, just kind of my whole, like, goal for coming home and moving home after graduating was kind of having nothing to do besides Japan prep. And since it's all kind of prep, the only thing I really need to do is study Japanese, relax. I need to take my, you know, I need to enjoy myself. I've just been so burnt out with school, stressing out, and now, like, I've been working 5 days a week on this job that I, you know, it's money, but I don't really enjoy the job, and I'd rather be doing YouTube. I'd rather be just at home, honestly, just maybe playing some video games. I want to enjoy my summer. I want to visit some friends and go to the beach, go camping, you know, all that shit. I'm not trying to travel too much because we're trying to save money and I don't want to get hurt or anything. I'm kind of trying to, like, shut myself in the house and just kind of, but if friends want to hang out, I absolutely want to go do that. It's, you know, this might be one of my last summers in America, you know, and so I told my dad that. Of course he understands. He was kind of like, oh, well, you should come to work, but he understands. He's just kind of giving me a hard time, but I'm like, yeah, I'm in a spot, and I even said to myself, like, yeah, I think I'm done working. I'm good. So it's gonna be sweet. So I think in the next coming weeks, I'm gonna be in a much more relaxed state, not having an alarm. I can kind of wake up when I want to, probably still waking up early and, like, getting shit done, but, you know, just doing some YouTube at my own pace, playing some video games, whatever I want to do, and just kind of relax. I'm fucking stoked for it. And of course, Japanese is gonna be a huge one. Last thing before we sign off on the podcast, as we're hitting about an hour here, and I think it's getting a little long, I was gonna mention some language studying that I've kind of been doing recently, and again, I haven't been doing it a lot, but there's like one day a week where I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna study Japanese all day and watch some Japanese stuff. So, oh, there's another thing I want to mention. Okay, sorry. Okay. Stay focused. I've mentioned this in the past, but I still stand by it. I think it's one of the greatest shows that you can watch if you're at like a. I think you'd have to be at a pretty. I don't know. I would suggest being at an somewhat of an intermediate level, knowing a little bit of Japanese before doing this, because the show, some shows are just, you're gonna want something simpler. If you're at a somewhat intermediate level, or you have a pretty good, like a small concept of Japanese, and you want to kind of improve, I cannot recommend enough the show called, I guess in English they just call it Shin-chan. In Japanese, it's Kureon Shin-chan. So if you go on YouTube, I'm not gonna point you where to go because it's not sometimes it's not posted legally, but on YouTube they of course have it everywhere. You can usually find videos. If you can type it on your keyboard or Google the Japanese typing for Kureon Shin-chan, type that in, pick an episode, and load it up. And they're only like, it's like SpongeBob, if you ever watch SpongeBob, where they're like 10-12 minute little episodes. So usually you'd see two, and like you'd have like one episode, a commercial, and then another one. So they're short, they're quick, they're funny, they're entertaining, and of course, like the show, if you haven't seen it, it's like this 5-year-old boy, but he has the mind of like an adult. He's like perverted, he makes dirty jokes. It's kind of adult humor, but it's also like family life and his like problems he has with his friends, just like the little problems kids have. They lose a toy and they spend all day trying to find it, things like that. But the Japanese they use is so like real Japanese, and of course it's like they live in Tokyo, I think, or at least they're using like kind of standardized Japanese, which most TV does that. You're not going to hear the Osaka ya, you're going to hear the Tokyo da. If you know the difference between those, it's just different dialects in Japanese. But really, man, I can't tell you. Like, there's a day I'm like, man, I need to study some Japanese. Do I want to study kanji? I'm like, oh no, I want to watch some Shin-chan. So I'll pull that up and literally like watch it through once and be like, okay, go through again, and I'll literally like, this is what I do. You can do whatever you want, but I find an episode that has the subtitles so that if I can't hear it right, if there's music or a sound effect, I'm like, what was that? It's written there, right? So I'll pull that up, and on the second walkthrough or like listen through it, I'll go through and start writing down words I literally don't know. Like, what the fuck is that word? Write it down, write the kanji, look it up on my phone, look it up on the internet. If I still can't figure it out, I'm like, oh, okay. Do all that. And I'm telling you, I'll watch it like 5 times. And, to do this language stuff, I think, some people, they might not like this, but for me, it's great. I think you kind of have to be insane and just kind of keep going. Because the more you watch it, you're like, oh yeah. And you start to, condition your ears to hearing it, but also maybe like repeat it back yourself, practice it. I have like a notebook with a few episodes of like Shin-chan scripts just written out. It's usually only like 2 or 3 pages because the episodes are so short. But what I'll do after that, after I kind of understand it, if I have the energy enough or enough coffee or something, I'll go through again and write down word for word the entire episode, because it's not that long. And also it's good writing practice. Like, I'll try not looking at it and kind of listen and be like, okay, what was that kanji? Oh shit, look at it. Oh yeah. And it's just good practice, And so I encourage you to check out Shin-chan. Speaking of shows, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and they usually have some kind of like a theme. And I was kind of I wasn't really like thinking like what's a theme, but today I thought of something I kind of thought might be kind of cool. Is I like to talk about, because I don't watch a lot of movies, just because I don't know. Recently in my life, I just find they take too long. I love films, but recently I don't watch them at all. Of course everyone watches movies occasionally, but just not as much as normal. I'll have to call him back. I watch a lot of TV shows, because it's like 30 minutes, maybe like an HBO hour one. And I'll watch it when I'm going to bed, right? Like I'll go to bed an hour early so that I can watch a show. I love watching shows. And I thought it'd be kind of cool on the podcast, maybe to like just let you guys know what I'm watching, or like if I'm watching something new, like, oh, you got to check out this show, whatever. I don't know. Some podcasts have like little themes or some things like, oh, this is the thing of the week, or the argument of the week, or the thing that pissed me off this week, whatever. I'm just going to mention the show I'm watching recently. So 2 shows, Westworld, not Japan related at all. HBO show Westworld. If you haven't seen this shit, you guys may have already seen it. I'm kind of late to it, but holy shit, Westworld is dope. I'm about 7 episodes in. I'm not even going to... I don't even want to tell you what it's about. I'll just tell you that it's Western themed. If you like cowboy stuff, but it has a spice of futurism in it. That's all I'll say. It's cowboy stuff with a spice of future stuff. And what was that movie that came out? I don't even remember the act. It was the actor for James Bond, where they're cowboys but aliens come. It's nothing like that, but let's just say, like, it's kind of similar to that, right? It's kind of that feel. And I love cowboy movies. I'm not like a diehard. I haven't seen them all or anything, but I love them, right? I grew up on them. Even just like the second or was the third? Yeah, third Back to the Future. Like, my dad was a big fan of, we got Clint Eastwood. Who's the other guy? I don't know, whatever. Just basically like those outlaw Western films, right? So that's a show I've been watching recently, but one that's actually related to Japan. I'm late to this party, and I told you guys I'm not a huge anime guy, but recently on Netflix I've been watching One Punch Man. It's fucking good. It's great. I kind of knew what it was, and I never really watched it. And again, I'm pretty ignorant to anime and stuff, but One Punch Man is pretty rad. I don't want this podcast to go too long, but I just thought it'd be kind of cool. Like, again, I watch a lot of shows, so maybe like on the podcast I'll make it a thing like, oh, I'm totally watching this show, let's talk about it. Like, try to keep it spoiler free or whatever. I don't know, I just thought it'd be kind of a cool thing. But I just wanted to mention that One Punch Man, I'm sure I know a lot of my fans here are anime fans. If you like the show, let me know in the comments. I'm sure you guys, it's a big show. I know a lot of people like it. It's probably like kind of overpopular, one of those, like, whatever. I think it's hilarious. And I think it's a show, now that I'm not working in the next few weeks, I'm taking like time off, I'm going to be watching some Shin-Chan and probably a little bit of One Punch Man, because the One Punch Man is a little bit more, obviously it's more serious in moments. It's funny, but it's like they talk all serious, like everyone else but Saitama, the main guy, like the One Punch Man guy. They're all talking serious and they're fighting. One other big part of my studying in Japanese I've been doing lately is fighting words. Not that I plan on getting in a fight, but in a lot of movies you'll hear like fighting words or people calling each other pieces of shit, all that stuff. I don't really understand it that well yet. So I actually have a spot in my notebook called like Kenka no Hyogen. It's like finding expressions in words, And so I think as a part of like my studying before going, as like funny I think it's it's definitely worth studying, and I think it'd be fun to use like in a joke, or if I'm like playing a game with a friend and I want to like joke threaten him. I love doing that in English, so I think it'd be great to do in Japanese. I'm gonna be watching a little One Punch Man and kind of like going through, and again you can watch it in Japanese on Netflix, but also turn on the English subtitles. But I'll watch it in the Japanese and be like, okay, and then maybe try. I think it'll be a fun tool. So I encourage you guys to use shows if you can. If you are studying Japanese, try to incorporate like an episode a week and try to dissect it and learn something. You'll learn a lot more than I ever thought. Because sometimes it's hard. A lot of people ask like, where do I go from here? Like, what do I read a book? Like, what do I do? And I think reading a book is great, but reading a book has its own set of words that you'll never see in spoken Japanese. It's like, even in English, there's probably a lot of words like thus and therefore and all that stuff. You read that all the time in a book, like therefore, in conclusion. I'll never say that in spoken, but people use it all the time in written, right? So similar deal. But I'm gonna wrap up the podcast because it's going a little longer than I expected. I got a couple phone calls I gotta make. Anyways, thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. I know we're not in Japan yet, but thank you guys for being patient. Trust me, I want to be there. I would argue more than you want me to. I want to be there so bad, and I'm so excited. But I thank you guys for being patient and hanging out and supporting the channel until we get there and enjoying the content that we do have. Please look forward to the upcoming videos. Again, shout out to everyone on Patreon. Please check me out on there if you want to directly support. Much more to come, and if you don't feel obligated to do it, I totally understand. As once we get going more and we're have more activities and more like live Q&As and stuff happening a little bit more frequently, that's going to be a lot more fun. Live Q&A this month on the 22nd, July 22nd at noon. 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Please check it out if you are on Patreon. The few super supporters, I hope that a few of you guys can come hang out. I want to meet you guys and get to know you guys more. You guys are supporting the channel. Let's hang out. Maybe I always toy around with the idea of maybe in the future, like, we're having game night, Patreon game night, or even with all the viewers where it's like, maybe there's some game, I don't even know, off the top of my head, Rocket League or fucking Players Unknown Battleground, whatever the fuck. I don't own that game yet, but like I've been playing a lot of Tekken lately. I'm busy. I don't play a lot of video games, but me and some friends picked up Tekken 7, and I'm not a fighter game guy, but holy shit, I can't put it down. It's a fun game. Maybe we could do some game stuff in the future. That was just an idea I was toying around. If you guys have ideas, shout it out. I'm gonna sign off. I will see you guys next time. Hopefully, well, you'll probably see a normal video, but I hope to see you guys next time with some more information about the visa and getting this ball rolling. I swear it's soon. Well, in theory, knocking on wood here, but I swear we'll be there soon, and I can't wait. Thank you guys so much. Love you all. Have a great week, and I'll see you guys next time with hopefully another video from Japan, if not a video about Japan. Signing off, this is Eric Abroad. See you guys next time. Ja, mata.